is David Schwartz doing his Icebreaker speech, and he's being evaluated by Kelly Smith.
David's objectives are to begin speaking before an audience, discover speaking skills you already have and skills that need some attention. Time for 6 minutes.
Okay, I'd like to introduce David Schwartz, stock options versus life options. David Schwartz.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster and fellow Toastmasters. It's really punchy to be up here speaking for the first time. I'm actually used to public speaking. I find myself a little nervous because you just get that way, I guess. Well, when I was a kid, I always wanted to grow up and be a Air Force test pilot. I always loved the idea of flying and high tech and all that stuff. And I was sort of ran my life until I 5th grade and I got glasses. Can't be a pilot with glasses. So about that time, I was also very interested in electricity, electronics, and stuff like that. And ended up getting my ham radio license when I was 13, and I missed the advanced class by like 2 questions when I was 15. So I've still got my license today, although I don't use it much at all. But I wanted to be decided at electrical engineer because you work with all those little circuits and stuff. And Intel came out with the late 1008 microcomputer in '72, and I just grew up with all that stuff. And I thought it was so much easier working with software instead of electrical circuitry, because if you had a bug, you didn't have to rewire things, and if there was a problem, the old smoke test didn't happen. You had to just change the code. I thought that was much, much easier. So when I got into college, started off as an electrical engineer. About partway through my first semester, I thought, yeah, I don't want to do this. My interests were always much more broad. In fact, it came to be I couldn't decide whether I wanted to major in cognitive psychology, linguistics, or computer science. Cognitive psych and linguistics are fascinating to me, but I realized that the only real future there was being a college professor doing research. And I always liked high-tech stuff, and I loved programming. It was like, to me, it was like a fish to water. And so I decided to go into computer science. But the issue had no computer science program at the time. They had 5 ways to study computers, and one was in an engineering program, but the other was in math. Math had pure math, applied math, and computer math, which actually evolved into their computer science program. So I became a math major, which was in the liberal arts college. This posed a bit of a problem when it came time to do interviewing with companies who were doing college recruiting. Because any of you may have been through that. The college recruiting office, the companies always like to be very specific about the majors they were looking for. It's either engineers or electrical engineers, chemical engineers, CIS, MIS. Nobody wanted a liberal arts major. So I couldn't get scheduled for anything. For all the, AMD, Intel, Honeywell, I couldn't get any interviews. So I had to go down there and hang around and grab the recruiters coming out and say, I'd like to interview with you guys, and give them a resume. Well, I did that with Intel, and the guy asked me to wait. He came back and invited me in to interview. And the nice thing was, a couple weeks later, I get a phone call. Oh, the guys from Intel, and they'd like to invite me up for an on-site interview. Wow, cool. So I'm going to be coming to Santa Clara, right? He's going, no, we're up in Portland. So Portland, where's that? Portland, Oregon. I was born and raised in Phoenix, okay. Portland, Oregon. He says, where's that? Well, north of California. I'm like, California, it ends at Canada, right? So, no, there's some more stuff between California and Canada. I had to get out a map, and I looked and go, oh wow, there's 2 states up there. So they flew me up to Portland. I went for an on-site interview. It was a lot of fun. And then they called me a couple weeks later and offered me a job, which was really cool. And it was the highest job offer I got, $1,850 a month, which was a ton of money back in 1979. And one of the neat things I really loved about software was the fact that I figured I could be a quadriplegic and still program. I mean, it just seemed like as long as my brain was working, I could always make a living off of software. It was a growth industry, it was doing great, and there was just a huge demand for software people. So anyway, I get to work at Intel, people start talking about these things called stock options. I'm like, what's the stock option about? And I asked my boss, didn't you get a stock option? I'm like, no. He goes, Came back to me a while later, he says, I figured out what the problem was. You were hired on as a level 3 engineer, and the company automatically awards stock options to everybody when they come in at level 5 or up. I said, oh, well, how do I get one? He says, well, in a year you'll probably get promoted, and we'll give you a stock option. Okay, so my first year review comes up, get promoted to level 5. I said, great, I'm gonna get a stock option. He says, no, company changed the policy, now it's level 6 and up. I'm like, crap. But he says, but we're gonna see if we can get you nominated for one anyway. Now, one of the things I didn't realize, which was why everybody seemed so confused, was I was the only person in my entire division that was hired who did not have a master's degree. I just had a bachelor's degree. I was also the only person that was hired who was actually brought on site for an interview that year from ASU. And I was the one that they wasn't considered qualified to even interview with them. So that was kind of interesting. Anyway, when it came time for